There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what is up? What is up? What is up? A little faux pas on my part, man. I didn't get the intro right, man. I played the intro before I hit the live button. So y'all saw the live in the intro, and it didn't work the way I wanted to. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna play the intro again, and we're gonna do it all over again because I'm a perfectionist like that. So I put this little intro together, so y'all check out the intro. Welcome to the Hawksbeat Podcast. It's your boy E-Dub. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to the show on all the places where you get your podcasts. Now, let's get on with the show.
Like we always do about this time.
I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lex is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from the Air Force. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
All right, there we go. There we go, folks. What's up, folks? It's your boy back again for the Hawksbeat Podcast, episode 36, the NBA draft edition of the Hawksbeat Podcast, man. Got a full show for you today. Got some guests coming on. We're going to be talking all things Atlanta Hawks, all things NBA draft. As most of you know, the draft is on coming up on November the 18th. And so we're going to give you our thoughts and some different scenarios. Just going to be kicking it around. So sit back, relax, interact with the show. Hit us up in the chat. So do this for me. If you're in the chat, if you're listening to us, let us know where you're from or whatever. Let us know if you're a Hawks fan, who you would like to see the Hawks draft, right? So I've already taken kind of a little poll before we went live and everything, and I've taken a poll over kind of the last 2 or 3 days, but I want to hear from our listeners. If you're listening right now, if you're checking us out, hit us up in the chat. Let us know who you would like to see the Hawks draft at 6. Are you in favor of them moving up? Are you in favor of them moving down? Let us know. So, so we got some folks coming on today. We're going to be talking all things NBA draft with the Atlanta Hawks. Just some housekeeping that I always get out of the way that we do with our podcast. If you're listening, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate you. A big part of what we do is on the social media front. So we invite you to connect with us on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter and Instagram. If you're watching us live, we're also streaming live on our YouTube, our Periscope, and our Facebook pages. If you see the little scrolling marquee, you can follow the Hawksbeat on Twitter and Instagram at Hawksbeat. It's all one word, at Hawksbeat. Give us a follow, show us some love. We'll also do the same and follow you back. We love interacting with our followers. How do I subscribe to the show? I'm glad you asked me that. Subscribe to the show via our podcast networks. We're on Stitcher, we're on Anchor, we're on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast for the free ski. That's where you can find us. So we appreciate the love. We appreciate you guys checking in. And again, for those of you who just came in, you're Hawks fan, hit us up in the chat. Let us know exactly who you would like to see the Hawks draft. Where are we with the draft process? What you would like to see? Do they move up? Do they move down? So we're going to get into that. But let me bring on my first co-host for today. Let me see if I can bring him out here. There goes my guy, Brother Brad Hardin from Hoopball Hawks Podcast. Returning to the show, man. You're a veteran in this piece. What's going on, my guy? Thanks for joining us.
Man, E-Dub, thanks for having me, man. It's a blessed day. basketball is on the way, and I'm just happy to talk Hawks. I've been talking, I feel like, in links this week just about this upcoming draft, and ain't nobody know what's gonna happen, honestly. And I'll get into that later. But I'm just happy to hopefully we can try to figure out something as to what will go on as far as next Wednesday when the draft comes on ESPN.
Yeah, we're going to try to make some heads or tails of it. We're going to examine some different scenarios and see exactly what would be the most advantageous for our Atlanta Hawks. But first of all, man, let the folks know where they can find you on the Twitters, and let the folks know where they can listen to your great podcast, my brother.
Yes, as Edub said, I am with Hoopball Network, and I cover specifically Hoopball Hawks. So I'm in the right place tonight to talk about the Hawks. But if you want to check me out, hit me up on Twitter. It is Brad, Jarrett 67, Brad Jarrett 67 on Twitter. Hit me up, ask me questions. And as far as my show, follow us on Twitter at Hoopball Hawks, all one word. We usually try to put out episodes every Monday, and we've been really, really consistent as of late. And it will probably ramp up as the season gets started, along with Hawksbeats as well. So you got Hawksbeats in your rotation. Add me after. Listen to Edub first, then me. Yeah, and we're going to just put it in rotation like Future says.
No doubt, man. No doubt, man. It's all in the rotation, man. It's all in the rotation. Supposed to have another guest join us, but he'll get in when he gives in. So we're going to just kind of get over some of the little particulars of the show tonight, man. Brad, just the first things, man, before we get into some of this draft talk. The NBA announced some important dates this week, man. They announced that the NBA PA finally have come to a conclusion. And we're going to have a season, man. We're going to have a season, 72 games. The season is going to start on December 22nd. Hopefully, they will have a season that will run smooth, kind of like the bubble in Orlando. I don't know if it'll run that smooth, but so we have the start of the season on December 22nd. We have free agency, which is one of my favorite times of the year, November 22nd. And we have the NBA draft, of course, which we're going to be talking about tonight, on the November the 18th, man. When you saw the news of the seed that we're finally going to have a season, man, what were your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, I just want everybody to be safe as far as this process. I just hope that the NBA does their due diligence, because it's a lot of moving pieces, unlike being in the bubble in Orlando where it was a very controlled environment. And Paul Pierce on the jump, which I try to not make a habit of quoting Paul Pierce. You know, he could be historically wrong, but he did make a point, is that, you know, when they travel from city to city, those players on the end of the bench that are not in the rotation as much, not getting as many minutes, maybe a two-way player, they may be more likely, because they're not as well known, to go out, and the last thing you want is them to sneak out to blow off some steam, and then next thing you know, they get sick and then affect the team. So there's a lot of things that they have to account for: travel, food. I know they're trying to work out something where teams in similar areas, as far as if they come to Atlanta, they're probably going to play Charlotte. They may go down to Florida. They're trying to just make travel efficient. And so it's the same way on the West Coast. So I just hope that they are doing their due diligence. I know for us, for the Hawks, we're going to be well rested. But if you're the Heat or Lakers fan who happen to be listening to this podcast today, you're going to be griping a little bit, because you're probably going to see a little bit more load management from your top players. So it's a mixed bag. But I know on another podcast I talked about those teams that did get to play in the bubble. They got to try out some lineups, see some things, build some continuity to give them a little steam and headway going into the season, versus the Hawks, who they had a mini bubble camp, which is great. They got to do a little bit of evaluation, but in-game situation evaluation, you know, teams like the Hawks and others who did not make the playoffs, it may be a little bit of a learning curve there. So it'll be a learning curve on both sides, but I just hope that all the kinks are as ironed up as possible. I'm calling this like a game of operation. There's going to be a lot of ants along the way when you're playing operation, but you got to just do what you can do.
Yeah, I hope that it runs smoother. It seems that they did such an amazing job with the bubble in Orlando again, but that was just kind of a one centralized location. I'm hoping that it runs a little bit smoother. It seems like college football is really starting to find these hiccups now, man, with these cases and everything. And now as a nation, college football, man, them brothers are limping
Yes. And me as an LSU fan, we kind of skated out of a butt whooping on Saturday. So, I mean, I want everybody to get healthy in Baton Rouge. I hope the Halloween party was worth it, but we did skate out of a butt whooping that Saban and boys were going to put on national television.
Yeah, man, it's crazy because you have the two dynamics in college football. They really want these checks, right? They really want these checks, but it's like, okay, do I get these checks? The health of the players. To get these checks, the health of the players. So,
I mean, money talks. Ain't that what that Chris Tucker and Charlie Sheen Mooney money talks?
Yeah, man. So, man, we could go on and on about that, man. But let's go ahead and get into this. And I spoke with you, and I gave you kind of the outline of how we're going to do this. And if you're listening to the show, if you're on Twitter or you're on Facebook, or if you're following us on YouTube, here's going to be the format. So what I did was I examined about maybe 15 different mock drafts for the Atlanta Hawks from different publications, from everything from The Ringer to NBC Sports to whatever you call it. I went and I chronicled what they had the Hawks picking at number 6, and I took from that sample set. I took the 5 most, popular players that we saw in those mock drafts for the Hawks. And so I basically want to examine those 5 players since they've been the 5 popular players since the publications are talking about them. So I want to kind of glance over them. You know, we don't really have to break them down of what type of player they are. We kind of just want to see, could it fit with the Hawks? Is it not going to fit with the Hawks? You know, so before we get into that, I think I see my third co-host. I think he's finally found his way on here. Let me see if I can bring Brother Tate on to the show. Brother Tate, how you doing, sir?
Man, I'm outstanding, man. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. If you tried to come with, let me tell you something. If you're trying to come with the turning Deshaun Tate into Deshaun Late, then that joke has already been said already, bro. So that's old news. But pleasure you bringing me on, Dub. Brad, man, pleasure to meet you. Sorry I'm late, man, but I guess I was a little bit too over anxious to get this thing started, man.
Oh,
hey,
no worries,
better late than never.
Man. Yeah, no worries, man. Hey, shout out to your pod that you did this afternoon with the writer from Notre Dame, man. Good job on that. Real quick, Deshaun, man, let the folks know where they can find you on the social medias. You've been on the show before, man. They know who you are, so just give them a little shout of where they can get at you.
Oh, no doubt. At Tates Take Hoops on the Twitter as well as on the IG, TATES TAKEHOOPS. Got a really awesome podcast called Tates Take. The podcast is essentially a multi-level basketball podcast, high school, college, NBA, pro, international. If they playing basketball in wheelchairs or they playing it on the moon, we got all of that for you, man. So find that anywhere you find your favorite podcast. I like to call it the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content in the form of a podcast.
No doubt, man. Again, man, thank you guys. Thank you both again for joining me, man. You know, both guys are not rookies to the situation, so we're gonna get into this, man. And Deshaun, I kind of talked about it a little briefly before you came in. What I did was I went by and I looked at all the publications and I looked at all the mock drafts, and I picked the Hawks pick from all of these different publications, and I kind of homogenized them, kind of put them all together. Look at me using those big words, kind of put them all together. And we're going to kind of look and see, could this fit? Could it not fit? Do we like it? Do we love it? Do we hate it? Or whatever the case may be. So we're just going to go over those first 5 main guys that I sent you guys. And the first guy that I saw on a lot of the mock drafts was Denny. Help me out with that last name. Who knows how to really pronounce that last name?
Avija.
Avija. So Brother Avija was on 3 mock drafts slated to go to the Hawks. He was on the mock draft for The Athletic, for ESPN Plus, and for NBA Draft.net. So there were 2 players who were on 3 mock drafts slated to go 6 at the Hawks. Brad, I want to get with you, and then Deshaun, you jump in there. If he is available at 6, would you like this pick? Considering all things are considered, just we're not going to talk about moving up or moving down. Just if he's at 6, if we decide to stay at 6, if this is the guy they roll with, you feeling the pick? You like the pick? Yay or nay? How you feeling?
Well, first and foremost, anytime I talk about Danny, I got to throw in the DJ tagline. Danny, I see you. I like Danny. He's arguably a top 5 talent. There's no doubt about it. His point forward abilities at 6'9", he can really push the ball in transition, create his own shot. He can ball handle pretty well for being a guy who can play the 3 or 4. We have a lot of forwards on this team, so I'm not sure of how great of a fit it would be, but it feels that need for the Hawks to have another playmaker outside of Trae Young. He's pretty decent off the ball as well. He can keep people in front. He's not a great defender by any stretch, but he has the ability to at least keep you in front. And if he's going to keep you in front, that is, the bare minimum that you can ask for as far as anybody, especially coming from overseas, coming to an extremely athletic league in the NBA. So I would say if he fell to us, I mean, it can't help to have talent, and you try to figure out how to make it work. And with all the, the trade rumors that surrounding us, that will probably be surrounding us for the next 2 seasons, depending on how much we fill out this roster this year. It didn't hurt to just stockpile talent, see how it works, and then go from see and reevaluate things next season.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, definitely not a defensive stalwart by any stretch of the imagination. He got a little flair to him. And, I kind of like the kid. It comes from a basketball family. His pops played professionally overseas. Brother Deshaun, man, how you feel about Brother Danny if he's there at 6?
Let me say this, man. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to take this jacket off because I know it might be a lot of people that ain't necessarily going to love some things that I want to say about Mr. Abiha. I'm not, I don't, and it's not even that. I don't know what I like about him. I'm going to tell you why, because I don't see that international side nearly as much in terms of knowing some of the competition. Now, in terms of the country that he's playing in over in Israel and whatnot, and him representing that, obviously that's good. There's some heavy competition there. But we're talking about a whole different game coming over here. So I am a little bit more biased towards some of the American players because I know a little bit more about what I'm going to get. Now, from what I've seen, which is the same amount that everybody else just about have seen, is things that are on highlight film, things that you can't really break down. They're never going to show highlight film. They're going to show all the good things. The 3 of us go out there and put together a highlight tape and look outstanding like we deserve to be a number 6 pick. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the reality is they're never going to show you the bad things on these highlight films. I see the size. I see the length. The ability to shoot the ball is somewhat good. I think he's kind of spotty in that area where he shoots it really well when he's shooting it really well, and he's shooting it really poor when he's shooting it really poor. Outside of that, the elephant in the room word that you're going to hear more times than not in his draft is probably going to be length and wingspan and things like that. He fits the bill in those regards. How he fits in with the Hawks, I don't know if this dude's going to be good enough to even see the floor right out the gate. And I'm not sure I want to waste a number 6 pick in a draft that's already piss poor to an extent on somebody like that I don't get a real good feel for. Now, I've been wrong before. I said that I didn't want Luka Doncic, and I would have felt the exact without seeing Luka now in this same situation, I would have said the exact same thing. That wasn't going to change. And I think that there's some other guys that is on the board or ideally will be on the board at that point that I would like instead of him in a biased state. So let me just say this in closing is that I think it really just kind of depends who's on and who's off the board by the time number 6 rolls around, because I got other guys in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you look at all the Euros, there's always like a sample size. You really don't know because we don't see them. We haven't seen them play much. And the caveat this year is we haven't even seen some of the college kids play much because of the shortened season. So a lot of these freshmen, a lot of these younger guys that are jumping into the draft, we have really small sample size, and it's like, okay, we got to make a decision. There's going to be a whole lot of rolling the dice. A whole lot of rolling the dice.
Hey, Ed, if I could just say this real quick, I really feel like there's so many people who love to talk about this international player coming over here and doing well, and everybody points the finger at Doncic, and I think that that's easy to do because of the simple fact that when you're following him up, obviously that's a good thing for any international player right now. However, people don't take into account the international players that come over here to the United States and don't pan out so well. But I think it helps with Denny, no matter if he lands with the Hawks or anywhere else, with the fact that this NBA is starting to kind of turn in the direction of the international game overall.
Brad, looked like you was about to get in there and say something.
I agree with that. It's definitely taking a more European feel as far as the game and growing in that way compared to some other players who played overseas. At least he was in a competitive league. He did play some U20 on a U21 Israeli team, and they won 2 gold medals. So at least he has done some competition. But I mean, as Tate says, I mean, the NBA is a different beast. It's a different level of athleticism, maybe a little bit more physical in some aspects over in Europe, but that's just because when you're not athletically superior, you're going to try to do everything you can physically to try to impose your will on the court. But and as a comment that did pop up, yeah, his shooting percentages are spotty, and Tate alluded to that as well, especially in the free throw line. You gotta hit the free throw line from a high clip. But when you bring him on the court, and anybody who does, and I agree with Tate, I mean, I don't know how much of a great fit he will be here, and I said that as well. But his passing is very underrated. He's a very great passer, and I think that right there, I compared him to a Dario Saric, and Dario Saric has you can always find a role for those players. Now, like I said, all the forwards we are a very forward-thinking team in Atlanta. I mean, we can move on from that and definitely get more guards. Like, I definitely see more guards or some rim protection as far as in the draft.
Gotcha. So with Danny, I'm getting kind of an incomplete from Tate. I'm getting a okay from Brad. I'm still kind of in the middle. I think that the Hawks are in a peculiar position because at number 6, you're really essentially drafting a guy that's going to come off your bench. And traditionally, you don't draft a guy that high to really come off your bench because Hawks, they already got your starters. Like, you already have your starters. You got, you're not really, there's nobody in this draft that's going to come out and start above any of these guys that are starting immediately, not at number 6. That you're going to get at number 6. So it's kind of in a peculiar position. That's why a lot of people are in favor of the Hawks dropping down with that pick. But we'll talk a little bit about that later. Some input from the chat. I asked some of the folks in the chat who were listening and say, who would you guys like to draft if you were running the GM? So this is from one of our listeners, Mr. Caden Alvis. Thanks for checking us in. He said Obi Toppin. We'll talk a little bit about Obi a little bit later. But if you're a Hawks fan, let us know who you think or who you would like to see the Hawks draft at number 6. Would you in favor to move down? And what would you like to do if you were the GM? The next guy coming up was he was featured. I was going to the Hawks in 2 publications, and I'm talking about Onyeka Okongwu. He was in the mock draft going to the Hawks in the Sporting News mock draft and the Tankathon mock draft. I'm going to start with you, Deshaun, on this one. Onyeka, am I saying his name right? Onyeka Okongwu.
Okongwu, yeah. Onyeka Okongwu.
That is a mouthful. Try saying that 3 times really, really fast. Again, considering he's just there at 6 and the Hawks decide to go with him, do you see a place where he can fit in with this Hawks team?
Man, I'll be honest with you. A lot of people are going to see this name, dude, and because it's not really recognizable, they're not going to love it, let alone being really hard to say. Pac-12 games come on after 10:30 at night, so not a lot of people had a chance to see how good of a talent he really is. Stretching the floor is not necessarily nearly as good as it could be, but I think you could say that about any player that's in this draft, even starting with whoever in the heck goes number 1. Outside of that, because of the fact that he can rebound the basketball, I think that he does some things in which I'm not sure he does anything great, but because he does so many things really good, kind of reminds me in the mode of, in terms of me trying to give that description, how Wendell Carter from Duke and obviously with the Chicago Bulls now, maybe not necessarily anything great, but has so many good tools to go along with it and can bring so many different things to the game. Rebounding obviously being one of them. Can he score the ball? Yeah, but he's not so much to a point where I would necessarily call him a scorer, not so much to a point where I would call him a rim protector either. And those things don't really spell good for the Atlanta Hawks. Now, if he's sitting there on the board, some of the other guys that I think are more ideal are off the board at that point, then he would be one of the front runners to go with. But besides that fact, I think just because he's solid all the way around, he's very coachable, obviously, and he plays with a really like the work ethic. Everybody's running around talking about LaMelo Ball. These guys were teammates at Chino Hills High School, and when Ball was getting all the credit, yeah, that's because I saw a lot of cherry picking. The guy who was really putting in some of that grit and that grimy work, creating second chance points and things like that, and that high energy, that was Onyeka Okongwu rather, and I like it for the Hawks, depending on who's there. I don't love it, but I don't think it's the most idea considering what he can't bring to the table or do really well. Sometimes that hurts you a little bit more than it helps you to not really have a bona fide skill set to be able to directly go to.
Brother Brad, jump in there.
I agree a little bit what he's saying, but I think that he can obviously be a pretty decent fit depending on what you're trying to build this team around. I kind of alluded to that if you're trying to build this Hawks team in the mode of when the 76ers had AI, you had a bunch of dudes who can go out there and guard and just were dogs on the defensive end and get you some boards and contribute where you can. I think this is the guy that can definitely fit that. I mean, he does similar things than what John Collins did coming into the league. And I've seen a lot of comparisons to Bam Adebayo just for his size, his intangibles. He needs to continue to work on his shot, but he did shoot the ball, I want to say about 74% from the free throw line at USC. So that does translate to potentially with the being in the right system and developing, becoming maybe a better shooter in that regard. He can block shots. He plays with a high motor, high energy, as Deshaun alluded to. And I think that he can end up being the best big man in his draft. Depending on obviously being placed in the right situation, continue to just have opportunities. I remember seeing him a lot in LaMelo Ball's highlight takes in Chino Hill, catching a lot of lobs, and he looked great. He went to USC. You saw the flashes of talent. I think a little bit more of a mean streak. He needs to develop that, but I think with more development and ability to continue to stretch the floor, I think he can do some great things. Now, I would like him better here than Danny. But like I said, I don't think he's the perfect fit. And I hear rumblings that this is the guy that the Warriors could draft as well. I know Wiseman's been up there, but they could trade back and draft him. And I heard that the Boston Celtics really like him. So it's going to be one of those situations. If he did fall to us, someone else is going to get him, and someone else is going to really, really like what they get out of Okongwu, because I think the sky is the limit truly with him, but being placed in the right situation.
I like the fact that he does a lot of the dirty work, a lot of like John Collins, a lot of Clint Capella. But here's the thing. You got a John Collins and you got a Clint Capella. And a lot of those things that he does are very similar. And while I do like the player, I do believe that they need as much defense as possible. I mean, I'm one of the old guys who have always talked about drafting a defensive guy, and he definitely can be a defensive presence on this team. I just don't know if you draft him while you still – that just doesn't seem of value to me, while you still have a Collins, while you still have a Clint Capella. And here's a thought that I'm sure you probably heard too, Brad. The idea that it's time for John Collins to get paid.
Yeah.
So could this be a situation where you draft the young buck and see what you got? And if you really like what you got, then it makes John Collins expendable. Hawks fans hate it when I say this, that this is a business. You know, as much as I love John, as much as I love talking to John, at the end of the day, it's a business. And I tell these fans all the time, and you guys probably see me if I go back and forth with Twitter fans, you can't get attached to these guys, you know? I mean, I'm not saying that that's will happen. I'm saying that that's what I want to happen. I think that there's a possibility that they could kind of move like that if they don't want to pay John no money.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, that's the only way you bring him in. And with that store called Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, I don't want it to be that situation because I really like John Collins, especially the work that he's put in to stretch the floor and shoot the three. And I think that if you're the Hawks and if you bring Okongwu onto your team, you can't really make rash decisions because you haven't seen what Collins is going to look like next to Capella. And I think that that's going to be great with Capella anchoring the paint and letting Collins move a little bit freely from the three-point line in. And, I'm thinking about loose ball, second chance opportunities he's already getting, those threes that he's already getting. And you have Capella to clean up your messes in the paint. And, and I personally think that Bruno Fernando is going to have a really great second year. I know that he's been working on a lot of skill work. I've heard a lot of rumblings of Fernando and how if he can work on any bit of defense awareness. I don't know what his 2K rating is on defense awareness. Probably in the 50s right now, and rightfully so, because that man be looking lost out there. But I really think that with Capella,
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, there's a reason. But I think, and he's young. He's played the game. Yeah. Started the game, playing the game late. But I think Capella being here is going to really push Fernando, and I think we're going to get more out of him. So I just don't think that we should bring anybody that really curtails into the core that we have. And Onyeka, Okongwu, and Danny Avila does that with the fours that we have on our roster.
Gotcha. Deshaun, any last thoughts before we move on to the next guy?
No, not really. I'm just hearing you guys going back and forth talking about 2K ratings and arguing with people on Twitter, which I think is the majority of the problem already as it is, because of the simple fact that you got so many guys who I'm glad are not NBA GMs and sticking to 2K. That's the biggest problem. People see 2K. This is not 2K. This is a business, my friend. And I just hope that people not understand that, but understand that a lot sooner than later.
Yeah, man. I was going back and forth with a fan last season, almost after I think it was a Miami Heat away game or something, on the value of Travis Schlink and Travis Schlink knowing how to do his job. And I was trying to let this man know, this man, you don't just stumble onto GM jobs. Like, this man has pedigree. This man had Jerry West vouch for him. You knows what he's doing, right? So no GM is always going to hit 100%, but he's the GM for a reason. Let's let these GMs do what they do, and that is GM. The next guy I want to bring up, man, is Issac Okoro at number 6. Now, Isaac was slated to go to the Hawks in the ESPN Plus draft and the SB Nation mock draft. He's kind of a guy that I'm kind of, out of the three we've talked about so far, this is probably my favorite guy out of the three. I see Deshaun chomping at the bit, man. So I'll go ahead and start with you on this one.
This is your dude. This is your guy. Let me tell you something. When the draft lottery happened and Hawks got number 6, everybody's all upset. This isn't the draft you want to be number 1. Be happy with where you are. Be happy that it's more than likely, if things pan out the way that it's subject and looking like it's going to, this man will be on the draft board at that point, and you can go and fill your biggest need, which is defense, because you're one of the worst ones in the entire NBA, not just in the Eastern Conference. He's a coachable kid, a great kid. He's familiar with the culture already. McEachern High School right up the road in Atlanta, so he got the swag. He already know what that's about. You don't have to pull this man, call a timeout, pull him over to the huddle, yank him up by the jersey, tell him to go back out there and play defense, and then all of a sudden he knows how to play. That's not this kid. This kid wants to do that. He embraces that. He wants that. He can defend 3 positions, maybe 4 in a small ball situation where he plays the 4. Athletically gifted, very high IQ. I mean, there's really not much that I don't like about this kid, to be quite honest with you. Sometimes the fact that he is a little bit more passive and that he is a little too comfortable in a role that he's comfortable in. If there is a lock for somebody that I feel the most positive, or let me think of a really fancy word for you, E, the most optimistic about in this draft, it is this player, especially for the Hawks. This is your guy. Now, if you want to go out there and get over 130 points hung on you every night and so forth like that, then we're having a whole different conversation. That's for those 2K people. But if you want some stops on the opposite end of the ball, and he's not a bad jump shooter. Is he a great jump shooter? No, but you're not bringing him in here for that. You fill your biggest need, and that's defense first. You go with Issac Okoro.
Brad, jump in there, brother.
I know that we're not going to bring DeAndre Bembry back, and honestly, with the money that you're probably going to pay Bembry, you don't have to pay him because you can get Issac Okoro. I 100% agree with everything that Deshaun said about him. He's going to be a great defender. He can guard 3 to 4 positions. I like him because if you could put him at a 2-guard position, you could put him on the best 1 or 2 guard on the other team, and so Trae Young doesn't have to expend that energy. He can focus on facilitating, on scoring, and doing what he does. And he's going to get better as a jump shooter. He's extremely coachable, very selfless player. And like Deshaun said, almost to a fault. Tremendous athleticism. A lot of people compare him to Caron Butler, Andre Iguodala, and I think he's really great as a playmaker. He's very underrated in that aspect, especially in the pick and roll situations. And I think that once he comes in and proves that, and there were some flashes on it on the tape when he was at Auburn, he come in and do it. I mean, shoot, I see a situation where you can have Trae and Capella or Trae and Collins on one side of the court and have the other 3 have Issac Okoro trying to work out something with the other 3 and really just have like a two-way threat on the court as far as going to the basket. And that's another thing that he can really do. He's going to walk in the league and be a good finisher. I think he's going to be one of the better finishers when it's all said and done. And just like Andre Iguodala, we could come in back in the day when he played for the 76ers and he was going to dunk on everybody. And hopefully if he gets that dog in him and we really just unlock him being home, being the hometown kid, man, I think really the sky is the limit for him. So out of everybody that we talked about today, he's definitely number one. He's Hawks Twitter's number one, and rightfully so. I mean, I can't really say a lot of bad things except his jump shot, and that's going to get better. Like, you can say by everybody in the draft needs to get better at shooting. So, I mean, let him come in. He's going to put the work ethic. He's going to have to be around family. He's already going to come in and be a great defender. He could possibly come into the league, and we could talk about in 2-3 years being one of the best defenders in the league, just like we talk about Drew Holiday and why everybody's trying to compare us as far as talk to us about our cap space and trying to trade for Drew Holiday. This dude could come in and do it. And as Deshaun alluded to, the IQ, he's a smart guy, especially being young, to already know how to play the game right. And you don't really have to teach a lot of in-game situations to him right away. He's just going to come in and just make the right play. Similar to, like I said, what DeAndre Hunter did last year. He came in and made a lot of good plays, even though it wasn't the flashiest. And I know a lot of people saying, why did we make the trade that we do to get him at forward with the numbers?
They was hating on DeAndre last year, man.
Oh yeah. They were hating, rightfully so. But we talk about this, that microwave in society. Everybody wants that instant gratification, you know what I'm saying? You got to trust the process, not to bite off a Philly, but you got to just take it in stride and really let these young guys cook. And he's going to come in and cook, and I think he's going to make everybody else look better.
Yeah, I definitely think, if nothing else, man, it's a really good fit for him, I feel. Like, if you're going to get 6, if you're going to get him at 6, a guy that's going to come in there, I think he can really be explosive with that second unit. Defensively, have him on one wing, put Cam on the other. That's a really good defensive second unit. That's a really good second unit.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
E, can I throw something at you real quick?
Yeah.
Besides the fact that I think if this guy is right there for the taking and the Hawks pass up on it, are they making a big mistake? But outside of that fact, you know, we just got done finished talking about the great job that Travis Schlenk has done in trying to build this thing into something like a Golden State Warriors type deal. Let me tell you something. Everybody was talking about Amari Spellman and this and this and that. Now, hear me out when I say this. You were looking for your Draymond Green. Now, he's not going to come with all the bark that Draymond Green is going to come with. But this guy is definitely going to come with the bite. He has something that's transferable and translatable to the NBA game, which is the ability to play defense and having a knack for all those second chance points and loose balls and all of these different things, wanting to be scrappy and so forth. The school right up the road, and they have been nationally ranked at the top of the list for the last couple of years, McEachern High School, and winning all these championships. He played on that team and had a big, huge role in it. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about the shorter players and all this other kind of stuff. Sharif Cooper, who was fantastic, great, going to Auburn, and does all the fancy stuff. This isn't Big 12 football. This is not Pac-12 football where it's all about offense all the time. If you go back and look, the guy who was the defensive anchor, the guy who was that bite and kept it all together, you know, the one that just kept everything together, essentially, that was Issac Okoro. That's one of the things that can also translate over. For me, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, no doubt. Shout out to brother Isaac, man. It'd be good to see him stay in the state of Georgia, man. Next up, man, was kind of a unique pick. I saw this guy on 2 mock drafts going to the Hawks. I saw him on the NBC Sports mock draft and the CBS Sports mock draft. Had the Hawks picking up Tyrese Haliburton. An interesting pick being that he is kind of a point guard, big point guard, 6'5", 175 out of Iowa State. Kind of a different move here for the Hawks to go point guard at 6. I'm gonna start with you, Brad. What are your thoughts on the idea of taking a point guard at 6?
I'm gonna say this: outside of Issac Okoro, if Tyrese Haliburton were to follow to us somehow, some way, I say go for it because he can play off the ball. Like he's a very selfless player as well. And at 6'5", he's a very underrated defender. He can go out and get steals. He averaged 2.5 steals last year as point guard 1, and I can see him like similar to Okoro. You split the court with two great ball handlers, and he's a really great passer in himself. He shot 42% from 3 last year, and that was an improvement from year 1 out of Iowa State. So you see the improvement, you see the work ethic, and as a guard, he's a very underrated rebounder, averaging 6 rebounds a game last year at 6.5 assists per game, shooting 50% from the field as a point guard. That's extremely well, especially in the Wild West as far as offenses. That is the Big 12, which is arguably one of the better basketball conferences in college basketball. And to have him, I think he can defer. I know a lot of people would say, like, well, he needs to have the ball in his hand as well. But I think with his ability to spot up shoot, I think that is something that you can use as well. And he's not the defender that Okoro is, but he's a guy with a long wingspan that we talked about, the intangibles, that he can get it to passing lanes. He has great instincts. He can make some deflections and start the fast break and get it going and make plays. Like, that's all he did at Iowa State as the guy was make plays. Now, I know some people say seeing a point guard like that's. Look at Shea. Look at Shea and Chris Paul. They made it work in OKC. I mean, you have a ball dominant guy. Shea is also a ball dominant guy as well. But they took turns, and it didn't take away from the offense. It actually added and created more opportunities for other players on the team. And I think that having Trey and a Halliburton in an offensive situation will create opportunities for the Reddishes, for the Hunters, for Capellas, for Collins, and anybody else on this roster that we signed in free agency. I think he can unlock some different parts on the court, and it doesn't have to fall all on Trey Young's shoulders. But like I said, not the defender that Okoro is, but if he falls there, and I think that Chicago should get him. I spoke on a Bulls podcast earlier today that, hey, I mean, why even try to go get LaMelo Ball? You can get Tyrese Haliburton and get everything you want. Because I think when looking back on it, he's going to be probably one of the best guard to come out of this draft.
Now, Deshaun, before I go to you, man, Tyrese is I guess he could kind of be considered as kind of a combo guard. He does kind of have those combo attributes a little bit, can shoot the ball a little bit. This does address a need for the Hawks because they are in need of a backup point guard. No disrespect to Brandon Godwin, but the metrics show and the numbers show last year when Trey went to the bench, this Hawks team was shoo. And so you're hoping to see progression from Godwin, but if he's not the guy, I mean, it seems like, you know, I like the Halliburton kid. It feels a little weird at 6 to me personally. What are your thoughts on if they were to pull this situation off, Brother Deshaun?
I'm feeling away, bro, because I think B over there is living in my head rent free. I feel taken advantage of. Okay, I feel like he done came up and found my spare key to my house that I thought I lost, but sneaking in here and going through my notes because this dude is the guy right behind Okoro. If Okoro is not on the board, another guy I really feel like you'll regret. You don't want to be in a situation where you miss out on one guy and then you miss out on another guy. And then you could have had that opportunity in back-to-back situations. It gives me that impression a little bit of where, and I'm not saying he's going to be this player or be this talented, but in terms of his style, okay, you remember how big of a guard Penny was, the way that he could control the ball at 6'7" as a point guard. He wasn't magic at 6'9". Not many people are. Mamas ain't giving birth to people like that no more. But the reality of the matter is that he can do that. He comes down with that pace. It's not like he's erratic. He's not crazy with it. He can throw some dimes here and there. He can in terms of the responsibilities and the duties of a point guard, knowing the strengths and weaknesses, breaking it down like his geometry and algebra of every single player on the team. He does that exceptionally well. I know he got hurt a couple times over at Iowa State, and maybe that's a little bit of a red flag and concerning some people a little bit. Me, not so much, especially in this draft. Be honest with you, I think that he would fit in pretty good because not only him coming off the bench, but if you have a guy like Trae Young who you're asking to put all the points on the board, essentially, okay, to also have to defend guys, okay, we already know what that looks like, and then even more so to have to distribute the ball and do that takes the extra load off and responsibility from him, where you can move Trae over on particular possessions over to off the ball at the 2 position and let this guy play the point and just work on setting guys up in the process. I'm not saying as a long-term starter. I'm just saying it's situational and to throw it off a little bit. You know, we see situations. I can't think of who the quarterback is for the Saints, the backup guy from BYU, the big kid. He comes in there from time to time, you know, and do some things. So I say all that to say that I think that this would be a really good pick. If it didn't pan out, then it wouldn't pan out. A point guard at 6 when you already have one. But I don't think it's a bad idea, especially considering the fact that he could play the 2 and probably defend some pretty strong 3s.
Yeah, and shout out to our guy from Smitty's Sports Machine checking in, man. That's my guy, Danny Avita. We got to go back and check the beginning, brother. We talked a little bit about Danny a little bit earlier, but yeah, man, I echo your sentiments, brother Brad, about Okoro. Like after Okoro, I like the Halliburton kid as well, and again, it does address a need for the Hawks, which is the backup point guard situation. You know, maybe he can push Godwin a little bit. You know. Godwin's got some fire in him, but nothing's better than competition, man. Nothing's better than competition. I thought it was kind of unique when I saw him on those 2 mock drafts. So the last guy we're going to bring up is the guy that I saw on the Ringer mock draft. Now, the Ringer, they gave a caveat with this, right? So they talked about Devin Vassell, but they did it in a situation with the Hawks trading down. So this isn't a Devin Vassell at 6. I think they were talking about a Devin Vassell, maybe like at 8 or 10 or something like that. So this is, I think it was at 10. The Ringer had him for the Hawks with this mock draft. I'm going to start with you, Brad, on this one, man. Devin Vassell, considering the Hawks made a move to drop down, do you like him at maybe the 8 or the 9 or the 10 spot?
I think he's definitely 10. And he's consistently number 10 in a lot of mock drafts, sometimes 11, depending on who you're asking. But another Atlanta product, I think he can be another great fit. He is good on the defensive end. He can shoot threes, which defense was a problem for Atlanta. We already talked about that. And they're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. So I think he definitely improves in that aspect. He's efficient. He doesn't play make as much as Okoro or Halliburton, but if you're trading down and getting a guy who could be a decent 2 guard and push Hardin, and I think this is a do or die year for Kevin Huerter. I mean, like if you don't show me some, I mean, I think trade deadline package you with Dedmon and see what we can get. And so I think that if you brought Devin Vassell in, he's the guy that can really push Huerter and really try to get more out of him because he can defend probably better. I'm going to go and say he come in to walk in the league and be a better defender than Huerter. And he already shot, like he said, he was a career 42% three-point shooter at Florida State. And I think one of the things he needs to get better at just in the mid-range, but I mean, I think it's just a lost art because most people want to shoot the 3 after seeing what Golden State did and influencing the next generation and so forth and shooting the 3 ball. But I like Devin Vassell. I know that he was originally at 6 and his stock has fallen, and it could be because of that video that he was joking with his shot where he was shooting the ball up here and looking a little awkward and stuff like that. I can see why we have to trade down and get him, but I think if you trade down and get him, he would be a good fit here. But I have some other players, and we'll talk about later as far as different situations if we trade down, different fits depending on what we get that could fit with this Hawks roster as well.
Deshaun, do you like Vassell, considering if we were all things considered, if we get him at 10? Now, the idea is if we get him at 10, chances are we're going to probably be getting another asset along with that because you know how Travis does, wheel and deal. You know, a lot of people talk about the Trey and the Luka deal. But a lot of people, you can't talk about that deal without talking about Cam Reddish. Again, salute to Travis Schlenk. This man knows what he's doing. Providing Devin Vassell is there at 10. Do you like that move at 10 for Devin Vassell?
I need to kind of know what's coming with that move, but just straight up, Devin Vassell at 10, personally, I really don't like it that much. I'm not really impressed. I don't think it moves the needle. I don't really think there's much of a purpose. The problem here isn't scoring. Okay, and I know in most cases when you play at Florida State, you're going to have to play some defense. Now, I'm not talking down about Devin Vassell by any stretch of the imagination, but what I am saying is I just don't think that it's a good fit. It's not that I don't think he's a good ball player. I just don't think that he's good to be in this particular uniform in terms of, the fit itself. I mean, you start thinking about some of the other guys, and I know that there was one from this area, and I can't think of his name, and I'm really hating myself because of it, but you can't guarantee me you're not going to be him. Even think about another product from Florida State being Dwayne Bacon. Can you guarantee me that you're going to at least be that? You know what I mean? And that's not anything spectacular. That's not something that's going to move my needle. That's not something that's going to make me pay attention. And so from that standpoint, if I'm able to be shown something on the defensive end where I see a little bit more quality in other areas besides shooting the ball, which he does it well and pretty efficiently, I might add. But for that purpose, I don't think that that's the issue that the Hawks have. You go take that somewhere else where they're kind of struggling to put points on the board, and I'll like them a lot more. But for the Hawks, without knowing exactly what I'm getting to come with that, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, I'm again, man, I think he's a good kid. I think he'll be a good ball player. I think he might even have some longevity in the league. He's an athletic kid, but that's just kind of a no for me. I'm just not really feeling the pick. Not at 10. At 10, I still think you need something with a little bit more juice, a little bit more meat on it. But, no disrespect to Brother Vassell. So those were the top 5 guys associated with the Hawks on a lot of the mock drafts, on a lot of the publications. Just real quick, over the last 2 days, we've asked Hawks fans, what do you guys like? Who would you guys like? Considering and saying the Hawks stayed at 6, who would you guys like? And these are the results. So the majority of the folks selected Tyrese Haliburton. Issac Okoro was right behind him. And Killian Hayes. We didn't really talk about Killian Hayes, man. Do you guys have any thoughts on Killian Hayes? We didn't really speak about him. I haven't really seen him associated with the Hawks in any mock drafts, but if Killian Hayes was there at 6, what do you guys think about this guy?
I'll jump in real quick. Killian Hayes, he has the potential to be a really good guard in this league, but for drafting as high as we are at this point, to get him, especially with the pieces that already have in place here in Atlanta, I feel like he's too much of a project. I feel like he needs to continue to round out physically. He's a really good passer. That's what he is. But he was on a team in Germany where basically the whole team was built around him. And he put up the numbers that he did. So I feel like it's a lot more development that you have to walk into as far as coming onto the team. And he's a person that needs the ball in his hands. And we already know who's going to have the ball in their hands here in Atlanta. So,
I already know.
Yeah. So Killian Hayes, I feel like if we're going to get somebody in the draft, we don't need to have anybody that takes away from our best two players, which is JC and Ice Tray at this point. And I feel like Killian Hayes will try to take that, and you have to teach him and coach him up a little bit more. Even though he played in some high competition over in Europe and spent some time here in the States as well, I just don't see it personally. I just feel like he's more of a project.
Yeah, go ahead, E. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, man. I was about to throw it to you anyway. So let me hear your thoughts.
I don't. As far as defense, I think that that's something they can buy into, and I think he does, much like B said, have the potential to be good in this league. It wasn't that long ago, probably about 3-4 weeks ago, people were talking about him moving all the way up into cracking the top 5 of this draft, which doesn't surprise me looking at everybody at the top. And when you start looking at the high risk, low reward and bust potential from some of those guys. But nonetheless, for this particular franchise, I don't think would really be a great fit by any means. But he is a kid that is originally from Florida and then went over to play some ball. And so he hasn't been there his entire life or anything like that. But nonetheless, he does have some American game to go with his European game. And I think that can do nothing but help. If it doesn't hurt, I think that it helps. And I think that that'll help him when it comes to the NBA. But I feel like he's not necessarily one of those guys that has to be put in a particular situation. He doesn't have to go to a particular team in order to be successful. Again, much like you guys have already kind of talked about, is, we know whose hands the ball is going to be in from day one. Ice Trae is not in a situation like we saw with Dennis Schroeder, where he was like not necessarily point guard by committee, but we wasn't sure when we said for the future how long that future would entail. Because we know exactly how long that future entails with Ice Trae, then that gives me even more, confirmation that this guy wouldn't be a good fit for the Hawks, at least not right now or anytime soon anyway.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you guys kind of summed it up. I want to get your final thoughts as we kind of wind down a little bit. We kind of talked about the 5 guys that were slated to the Hawks as far as these mock drafts were considered. If you were the GM, and I want to preface this by saying I'm going to ask you who you would pick at 6, and then I'm going to ask you what your perfect scenario would be, meaning trading up, trading back. So the first thing I want to ask you guys, and I'll start with you, Brad. Who would you pick at 6 if you were Travis Schlenk? All things considered, you're staying at 6, and that's kind of where you're picking at.
If I'm staying at 6, I'm going to personally go with Issac Okoro. I've had to ponder it. It's funny. About a month and a half ago, I really liked Devin Vassell, and then I watched more tape on Halliburton, and then he flip-flopped. And then
it changes.
But Issac Okoro has always been steady, and I'm going to go with the steady hand, especially in this draft, that I compare to, that teacher in college that was really hard for no reason, had that reputation. Say like, oh, just study the study guy, you're going to be good. But then you go in the test, and there was nothing like it. Issac Okoro is the most consistent answer. It's like putting C for everything. So I would pick Issac Okoro at 6 personally.
I got you. General Manager Tate, who you got at 6?
Living rent free again, bro. Hey, let me tell you something. I'm going to say is obviously Issac Okoro. He feels the need for everything that you need, everything that you want. You don't go with him. You don't want to win. I mean, we should start getting ready to start calling for some jobs after a while, because eventually that's the direction that this whole thing is going to end up going into anyway if you don't pick him up. Now, in the event that he's not on, the board at that point, and to be honest with you, I think the biggest issue that you're going to have is if he and Tyrese Haliburton are on the board still at that same time, because you don't have to, you don't have to worry about not going with one or the other. But if that's the case, then I'm definitely going Halliburton. But first things first, it's about filling the need, and the need is defense, and you're not going to win games if you don't have that. If you go back and look at the teams that have won these championships, they've had consistent defenders on their team, and somebody did it on the perimeter. And I'm just not comfortable enough with feeling like Cam Reddish being the guy who, as good as he played defensively last year, I think a lot of that was overshadowing how bad he was on offense during certain times. So I think the easy way to go is to go with Okoro.
Definitely. Can I jump in there, Brad?
Quick? Because to speak on Okoro, especially with us signing Nate McMillan, who is a defensive-minded coach, I'm going to say Nate McMillan's going to have a field day coaching up this kid. And it's not like it's going to be a lot of things that he had to teach him, because one of the things that he's going to be able to do is come in and just talk about – it's funny, the guy popped up about Nate McMillan.
Brother Smitty.
With his experience being a defensive-minded point guard, a defensive-minded coach, he's competitive. I mean, he's only had – I want to say out of his 15 years as a head coach, he only had 5 losing seasons, and he's been to the postseason out of his 15 years as a head coach 9 times. That experience, and then being the defensive-minded, and even if you look at the Pacers number, they were on the top half of the defense and a lot of defensive numbers last year. To bring in Okoro in, I mean, Nate McMillan's going to be licking his chops just to be able to say, all right, we're going to put him here, we're going to put him here, we're going to put him here, and kind of be that Draymond Green that Tate mentioned, to really just solidify the defense. And then with him and Capella, man, playoffs.
Playoffs.
Hey, he knows who he is, E. That's the thing I probably love about him the most, is that he knows who he is, and he sticks to what he knows and what he's being told to go out there and do. There's nothing like a player. Honestly, It's not even. It must. This. I thought this was a trick question.
Definitely, and I'm gonna echo your sentiments about the Okoro pick. Again, man, I really like the McMillan pickup. We didn't really talk about it much, but I think McMillan is gonna do just as much for Coach Pierce as he will do for those players. We forget Coach Pierce is still learning on the job, like, you know, and he's taking a lot of heat, and you know, some of it has been fair, some of it's been a little unfair to me based on the guys that he's had. You know, you're only gonna get so much out of that orange. You're only gonna get so much juice out of that orange, right? You know, but I really like the McMillan signing. I really like him being an addition to this group. And as we kind of wind things down, I want to ask you, and I'll start with you, Deshaun. What would the best scenario be for you? I know we've all kind of talked about what they should do with the pick. What would be your perfect scenario for these Atlanta Hawks?
Dude, I'm sitting back all the way until draft night, until some team decides that they want to move up and go and get a kid because they see him, they're locked in on him, they love him, and I'm just gonna sit there and dangle that little carrot right over the top of their head like this here, and just wait for him. Hey, because guess what? I got what you want. Okay, come and get it, but I need pieces and I need grown-ups. Okay, 5 starters, 25 years old and younger. That's not going to cut it. I need people who can come in here and are adults. You know what I'm saying? The reality that's just kind of what I see. In a best case scenario type situation, that's what you should do, because as much as we love Okoro, as much as we love Halliburton or anybody else that we can,
give me a veteran.
Hey, it could be Ant-Man, for crying out loud. I haven't seen anybody that just clearly looks like a clear-cut number one. They're gonna pan out. You can't miss out on them. It could be Wiseman. It could be whoever you love, like, hate, or anything in between. But if I can get somebody that has been in this league, it just doesn't make sense to try and continue to get younger.
Every day of the week. I'm with you, brother. Brother Brad, man, what would be your perfect scenario?
I echo those same sentiments. If we can go back in the draft and get a proven contributor and still get a young asset in the draft, I know I've seen some scenarios if we trade back to the Minnesota scenario where they said that if they trade 6 for 17 in Culver. I mean, Culver, no, we don't really want that, but something like that. I know Boston is itching to get into the top 10. Somebody, I mean, hey, if Boston's willing to give a Marcus Smart and we make that something, then maybe we can talk a little bit. He ain't going to shoot, but he going to defend. He going to be a dog. But anybody who is a vet, a proven contributor, and one of the players that if we were to trade back in the draft that we haven't talked about, who is actually probably one of my favorite players in the draft, and is Desmond Bain from TCU. 6'5", he can play a combo guard. He can defend. He can shoot the 3. He was a 4-year player in college, so he's going to be kind of not the defender that Okoro is, but he has the strength to defend, and he knows his game. He's not going to play outside of his game, so it's not like you're going to have to rein this kid in. He's going to come in. He's going to know what he's good at, and he's going to be the best at what he does, and I think he's going to be – a lot of people compare him to like a Malcolm Brogdon type, but if we can get a proven contributor and a young asset to go with it in the back of the draft, I'm all forward. But, I mean, obviously Vince Carter retiring, even though he didn't play a lot of minutes for us, what he brought off the court with his experience and teaching these young kids, that leadership, how to be a consummate professional, eat, sleep, drink, breathe basketball, and just work through life situations. Because like Tate said, there's a lot of young guys on his team. And it's a sink or swim league. Like, it's just like a make or miss league as far as prospects and, making your shot. It's a sink or swim league. If you ain't getting it, you're going to get out. Same in football. Like I played, if you don't get it, you're going to get out. So we're going to need someone that can really just rein these guys in, be that leader. And that's why I hope if we can work something out, I don't know what we have to give up. I famously said, Herder, Dedmon, 6th pick, give us Drew Holiday, and we'll take the 13th or 14th, 13th, whatever pick that the Pelicans have. We'll take that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree with you when you first said Herder. I mean, to be honest with you, for a guy who what is he going into his 3rd year?
Yeah,
if you sit here and look at this dude, okay, when it comes to
Smitty.
when it comes to, and no, I agree with Smitty. So check this out. And listen, when it comes to Herder, when we get ready for training camp, these first 2 years, he hasn't been available for training camp because he's been hurt. When it comes to these summer leagues, he hasn't participated in the summer leagues. When it comes to preseasons, he hasn't participated in preseasons. Like, forget about just the things that he's not bringing on the floor or putting on a stat sheet, but even preparing yourself. And some of you can't help. You get hurt. But again, it's a business. So I don't think that really helps the situation out a whole lot. Plus, he might want to hurry up and get up out of here because that dude owe me like $25 since like yesterday.
Hey,
he remember what Michigan State did to Maryland, so he know.
Hey, shout out to Sterling Steele, said first round Okoro, second round Devin Dotson. Appreciate you for checking us out, man. Perfect scenario. Look, let me tell you something. If there is a chance that you can land that holiday kid, anything you want, you can have except for number 11. Anything you want, you can have, man, because I'm a big fan of give me the ball player that has tape, that has NBA tape on him, making plays. I've always loved the holiday kid, man. If you can bring him in for some picks and a Deadman and a Herder contract and a number 1 and maybe a future number 2 that you don't stack up anyway,
let him go. Let him go.
Let's do it. They can take on the contract. They can take on the money. It's not going to be a burden. He's going to be motivated because he's playing next year. He's going to be a free agent, so he can't come down here and lollygag. Not that that's the type of player he is, but whatever you got to do to get that holiday kid, I know it's speculation, but that perked my ears up when I saw that rumor. I was like, okay, we here now. Oh, man. But, hey, this has been fun, you guys, man. Atlanta Hawks fans, thank you guys for checking us out. Thanks to my 2 guys, Brad and Deshaun, for joining me this evening, actually, man. I know I'll give you guys a little bit longer than an hour, man, but you guys, great conversation as usual. Brad, let the folks know again where they can find you. Tell them about your podcast again, one more again.
Yeah, E-Dub, appreciate you having me on. Tate, it was a pleasure talking hoops with you, man. This ain't going to be the last time, but follow me on Twitter at Brad Jarrett67, Brad JARRETT67. Follow the show at Hoopball Hawks on Twitter. We put out shows every Monday. We got some, obviously, we're going to rev up with the season coming up, and hit me up. I mean, if you don't like what I said, man, well, I'll talk Logic to you all day. Like Tate said, this ain't no 2K, baby. We talk about business. In the words of 2K, I'm a business man. That's NBA. That's NBA. So let's talk shop and let's keep this thing going.
No doubt. Deshaun, let the folks know where they can get you one more again, brother.
B, it's a pleasure, man. E, thank you so much for having me. Make sure you see it down there on the ticker at the bottom at Tates Take Hoops on the Twitter as well as on the IG. That's TATES TAKEHOOPS hashtag, and per usual that's where basketball lives, man. So Tates Take the podcast again. Never know who we're gonna get on there as far as guests. It's a multi-level basketball podcast, and it's simple. You catch it anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. And if it's I tell people, if it's 94 feet long, 50 feet wide, 22 feet, 1 1/4 inches out on the perimeter. Now that's for college. But if it's 23 feet, 1 3/4 inches out on the perimeter for the NBA, and if that rim is 10 feet tall, we talking about it, man, on my podcast. So I appreciate you for having me, E. Thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure. Blessings, and y'all keep those masks on your face. If you don't, do not come around me, please.
Yeah, man. Peace and blessings to both of you guys. Everyone listening to the show, man. I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the Hawksbeat Podcast. Get it anywhere you can find your podcast. Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, wherever we on it. Anchor, Spotify, the whole 9, man. Like we always say, man, God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. If you don't know him, you need to find him and show him love, because that's all he's showing you. LOVE love. Thanks, guys. We'll see you when we see you. Peace.